Hi everybody, and welcome to this discussion about planning. You might not think that's the most exciting topic in the world, but it is a very important discussion, whether we're talking about business planning, simple planning for a customer meeting, for an offsite meeting, or maybe a new product launch or an entire strategy. Planning is a part of what we do, or it should be, and it doesn't need to be that complicated. Planning can be very straightforward, and it's something that can help us to remain purposeful as we look to achieve our goals over a period of time. And so we're going to talk a little bit about planning today, and to demystify that process, and also to talk about some of the pitfalls that we need to be aware of and watch out for as we plan. Now, a lot of the time that I spend with clients is around planning. I do a lot of work day to day with management teams and companies, with sales leaders, with leaders of marketing, with leaders of distribution, you name it. A lot of my day-to-day work revolves around planning. And there are really three major elements of the planning cycle that I get involved in with clients. One is the planning process itself, or the plan. The second is implementation. And a third that is very closely related is the communication of the plan. There's actually an earlier step or an earlier stage that I get involved in with clients, and that has to do with what I call meta planning, or planning to plan. And essentially what you do before the planning process kicks off is to go through a checklist to say, do I have the right people involved? Do I have the right data, information? Have I done the right analysis? Do I have the right resources, whether that's technologies or tools or even location, the physical place where you're going to do the planning? So that process of meta planning can make the planning process itself go imminently more smoothly. So when we're in the planning process, that's obviously critical. The planning process and creating the plan, aligning on the plan, agreeing to the plan, that's really critical. Secondly, though, is implementation. This might sound like a very obvious statement, but implementation is the reason that we do planning. And forgive me, a flash of the blindingly obvious, but I've seen so many planning processes and plans just go back up on a shelf, never to be seen again after the planning process is completed. That's a waste of time. You shouldn't have wasted that valuable time on planning to begin with. So implementation is critical, and the implementation process needs to be a part of your planning cycle. How are you actually going to execute? Who's going to be involved in the execution? This all gets down to things like timelines and deliverables and so forth. Finally, communication. Again, a plan is of no use to anyone if the only people that know about it and are concerned about it are the people that were involved in the planning cycle or the planning process in that conference room or in that offsite. Get the people involved through the communication process that are critical to execution. When you think you've communicated enough, do it 100 times more, because you can never communicate often enough and get people on board with the planning process or the plan itself, I should say, the implementation, the execution on what needs to be done in order to achieve that plan. So meta planning before the planning process starts, planning, implementation, communication, all are critical to delivering a successful plan.